All right, before we get started, because we are the last session and people might be tired and whatnot, can I just quickly ask everybody to stand up, stretch out, move your arms, get the blood flowing, make sure everyone's awake to kind of hear everything we're going to talk about today. I want to make this fun and interactive, okay? And then if anyone has phones, put them away, close your laptops. Okay, you may all sit down now. All right, so I'm going to be talking to you about an Observability Champions program, but I just asked you all to stand up and do something. I gave you a command, and I wanted you to do it, and I wanted you to feel some discomfort. I wanted you to feel like, hey, who's this guy up here telling me to do something I don't want to do? He's not the boss of me. Why? And that was very kind of you all to stand up and do that, but I hate it when I'm in the audience and the speaker does that. So why did I do that? We're going to talk today, and a common theme in this discussion is about there's certain things that people don't want to do. They don't want to be told what to do, and it's really hard to tell people what to do and to get them to do things they don't want to do. So hopefully that you kind of understand where I'm going with this based on the title of the talk. So I appreciate the fun introduction. That's a photo of my family. Like she said, we live in the Philippines. I work for the Asian Development Bank. But my background is actually from California. I grew up down the street in Sacramento and did 2 years of missionary service in France, and then had an internet startup where we competed with YouTube for a little bit. Then I joined a big enterprise, worked for Chevron for 12 years. They moved us to Scotland, Texas, and California. And then she mentioned earlier the home automation. So for several years, I was really into home automation, did kind of a home blockchain where the kids earn tokens they do chores, earn tokens on the blockchain to be able to use the Xbox. So like if they want to play video games, they have to use one of their cryptocurrency tokens that we had in the automation system. So check that out, it's pretty fun, pretty cool. I've been at the Asian Development Bank for about 4.5 years now, and we really enjoy it there. So what is the Asian Development Bank? What do we do? We're essentially a nonprofit. We're kind of like the World Bank. We provide loans, grants, knowledge, and expertise to developing member countries. And we're government funded. So there's about 68 countries around the world who fund the Asian Development Bank. And our mission essentially is to eradicate poverty. And we do that by giving these loans, knowledge, and expertise to developing member countries. So think about building infrastructure, hospitals, power plants, freeways. They come to us to get very, very, very low rate loans, and we work with them to make those projects successful. And then the next natural question that people ask is, okay, how do you determine what projects you would get involved in? Why would the Asian Development Bank loan $1 billion to India to build a freeway? And essentially, we only get involved in projects that would actually move the needle on any one of these United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So we align ourselves with these. These are kind of our KPIs or our metrics. And we help countries, we invest and help and loan money and knowledge and whatnot to help these sustainable development goals. So as you can tell, I'm in IT. I'm not in the business, so that's about the best I can do, talking about the business. But let's talk a little bit more about IT. So getting back to that discomfort. Modernization is difficult. You're telling people to do things differently. You're telling people to change and transform. So for example, growing up, I remember my mother sitting at the kitchen table with her checkbook. And she would have all of these papers out, and she would be writing with a pen all these numbers in the checkbook. She said she was balancing the checkbook. And that was a very, very traditional way of doing things back then. But as technology came along, we got ATM cards, we got pay with your phone, we got new technology that actually allowed you to see your balance in your bank in real time. You didn't need to balance the checkbook. But I'm sure there were many, many people out there who enjoyed that process and trying to get somebody to say, no, you no longer need to balance your checkbook. You no longer need to write down all these numbers. There's a new and more efficient way of doing that. Getting through the change management could be difficult there. So we're going to talk about that in the enterprise. What we did at Asian Development Bank, we had a situation where we needed to drive adoption of new tools, and obviously the tool is Datadog. So we were in a situation where we had a lot of people, maybe 15 to 20 teams, who were used to operating a certain way, using their own monitoring tools, their own monitoring processes. And then I'm coming in as the new guy in the bank saying, hey, I have a better, more modern way for you to do this, but who am I to tell them what to do? I had no authority over them. I was not their boss or their director. but I was essentially saying, hey, stand up and stretch, and nobody wants to stand up and stretch. So how do we get around that? What did we do? So we had to get creative. We had to win people over. We had to get them to trust us and kind of create a process to facilitate getting people to kind of get out of their comfort zone and do something new and different and get some of their time. These people, they're allocated 110%. They don't have time. Who am I knocking at their door, okay? But we created a Champions program. So we called it the Datadog Champions program as we introduced the tool at the Asian Development Bank. And this is what we use to facilitate all of the change management and getting people on board. So the situation when I arrived at the bank was a bit disconcerting. When we had an outage or an issue, the help desk would send an email to the entire IT department. So you can imagine me, I'm new at the bank. Maybe it's my weekend, a Saturday or Sunday, and my phone starts buzzing, and I look, and there's an email from the help desk to the entire IT department. And it says, hey, a user reported this application's offline. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. A few minutes later, database team replies to that message and says, all the databases are fine. A few minutes later, server team replies all to everybody, servers are up. A few minutes later, network team replies, network's up. All of these teams kind of replying and causing an email storm in my inbox, and everybody's just saying, hey, my part's fine. And I was kind of sitting there thinking, wow, our users, for one, our users are the ones telling us when something's down. They didn't know until the user told them. And then kind of the process for managing that was very, very inefficient, so to speak. So another problem that we had was the tools were not integrated. So the Windows team or the Linux team, they had one tool to look at to see how the Windows servers were doing. The database team had a different tool. The network team had a different tool. So none of the tools were connected. Nobody had access to somebody else's tools. Everybody really lived in their own silo. And living in their silo, they didn't want to get out of that comfort zone. And it was kind of like, leave me alone, I'm happy in my silo, okay? So we also, being a bank that's been around for 50 plus years, we had a lot of legacy systems that were very difficult to monitor. And we're retiring our mainframe this month, finally. So that just gives you an idea of where we're at. So from a technology landscape perspective, we have a lot of traditional on-premise infrastructure, and we're slowly working on our journey to the cloud where we are migrating critical financial applications to the cloud. And we kind of have a from now on approach that things will be built and launched in the cloud if it's not a software as a service. So we have quite a variety in our landscape. So to kind of summarize the situation, you could kind of see we were very ripe for something like Datadog. There was a lot of low-hanging fruit and a lot of opportunity for something like Datadog to really change what we did or the way we worked. So to do that, I was given responsibility for a project called Enterprise Monitoring. So here, Matt, you're the new guy. Have fun trying to make a whole bunch of people that don't report to you learn something new. So my team was the production support team. We were about 5 people, and we went to the market, and we installed and tested 5 or 6 different tools and tried them all, kind of did a bake-off, which one tasted the best, which one was the most attractive, and obviously Datadog won the bake-off. And so my team, the production support team, was responsible for the adoption and rollout of this tool across the company, but we were just one team, and we were trying to get 15 other teams to use the tool. How could we do that when, frankly, they were quite busy? So I could have said, okay, production support will do the monitoring for everybody else. I could have said, okay, that one team, my small team, we could have taken on all the responsibility for monitoring for the entire bank. But I knew that wouldn't scale, and it wouldn't be efficient. We didn't have the time, and it's really much better if people actually kind of take ownership of managing and monitoring their own babies, so to speak. So we brainstormed this idea of a champions program. So we did a roadshow, went around to all these other teams and said, okay, here's a demo of Datadog. We essentially became Datadog salesmen, internal to the company. And through these roadshows, we had each team, and we got support from management, to, hey, nominate each of your teams, nominate somebody on your team who has maybe an interest to learn something new to become the designated champion for your team. So through this roadshow, about 15 different presentations and different team meetings, we were able to get the champions nominated. And so they became that middle layer, that kind of army of champions within the bank that their teams could go to for help and support. And they were responsible for setting up the Datadog monitors, the Datadog alerts, the Datadog dashboards, the APM, the RUM, synthetics. The champions would lead those efforts within their own team, okay? And then they would be the first line of support for their area. And then they could escalate to that top layer, which was the production support team. That was my team. All right, but that still begs the question of, okay, we can't just show up, nominate somebody, okay, you do it from now on, good luck. We had to actually create a program that would have a life and a process and actually stick with people and make it fun. So we created this gamification program where we had leaderboards, we had points, we had scoring, we had awards. And in the Philippines, I'm sure like many countries, they love gift cards. So we got funding to get a whole bunch of gift cards. And we made this program for the champions that said, okay, if you, for your team, we will track, as you can see on the slide here, I'm looking at the slide down here. If you do your dashboards, your logging, your alerts, and you check that off, kind of like a bingo card. Think of this as a bingo card. If you get bingo and you do all this, then you get an award of a t-shirt, some socks, a coffee mug, and maybe $20 gift certificates at a restaurant or something. And we also had, if you're familiar with video gaming systems, achievements that you could unlock. If you look at the star there on the right, if you do something extra above and beyond, you can unlock different achievements and get more gift cards. And then we're gonna have this leaderboard that will show people how you're doing. So I'm just gonna jump to the leaderboard there. So we would have all the points up there, people could see it, and it became kind of a game for everybody to see how they're doing. And not really, it was, I don't wanna say compete, because it was very friendly among the people. But let me go back here. So we also said at the end of your bingo card, we want you to kind of bring it all together in a certification. So our team came up with a 25-question multiple choice examination where we would get them on the phone, because this was during the pandemic, and kind of make sure, okay, closed book, don't look at Google, don't look at your phone, and we're gonna ask you these slide-by-slide 25 questions. And if you pass, then you get a certificate and an additional award of gift cards, and you get recognized as a ADB Datadog certified champion. And we even had little trophies made with their names on it, so they could put the trophy on their desk, they could wear their t-shirt, and they would be known. We would send out an email to all of IT, so-and-so has passed the examination, and they've become an ADB certified practitioner. And then we would email out their certificate and kind of blast it all around to kind of make it kind of a fun ritual. Okay? So that kind of grew and evolved into what we call the community of practice. And so all of these champions, we get on a call once a month, and we discuss what are the best practices, what are people doing, because it's a large organization, one team doesn't talk to the other team, but they get on this community of practice call and they share innovative solutions that they have created in Datadog, and the other teams get inspired, the other champions get inspired, everybody learns together. In addition to the monthly live sessions, we also have this Microsoft Teams chat channels where people can go in and ask questions. Hey, I'm trying to figure out how to set up this synthetic, can anybody help me? So it's a really good collaborative space to continue to keep everybody updated and working together. We also made internally Datadog TV. The technology was Microsoft Stream. It's kind of like an internal corporate YouTube, but we had our own Datadog TV channel, and the production support team would make fun videos that would say, okay, here's how you set up synthetics and authentication within our own internal ADB systems to log into the ERP. So that would enable somebody to make their own synthetics to get into the ERP. So a lot of examples and showing people how to do things. And when new people join the company, we can refer them to the Datadog TV channel. We also made a process of tracking success stories. So anytime a champion had a success, they would publish it, and they would get additional gift cards, additional points on the scoreboard. So we had a common template here where they would describe what was the challenge, how did they use Datadog to solve the challenge, and then what was the business impact, what were the results. And we measured that in a t-shirt sizing estimation. So we'd have them just kind of sit down 10 minutes on a napkin, write it out, how many hours did this save for how many people, how many days, multiply that across the month, and then how much across the year. Maybe you saved $10,000 to $20,000 a year. That's an XL t-shirt size. You get a gift card. We put that online. We share it in the community of practice. We publicize it. And it's all a standard template. So now we have a PowerPoint deck with like 50 of these success stories. And these 50 success stories, they go to kind of we can show them to stakeholders to demonstrate the value of Datadog in the company. But more importantly, as the other champions read other teams' success stories, they learn and they get inspired to kind of do their own. Okay, it's a very good system. It really helps inspire one another. Then we have an issue with projects. So everything I've been talking about is kind of like what we call BAU, or business as usual. However, quite often we hire these third-party consultants external to the bank to come in and develop software for us and develop applications and solutions. And that's managed through a project. And those formal projects, we had to come up with a way for them to properly implement Datadog for the new solutions they were building. And so we came up with this concept of, okay, the same way you don't let your dog outside before it's been vaccinated, you don't let your dog go live into production or it might get sick without the vaccination. So the Datadog vaccinations that we came up with, we implemented it as part of the project management standard framework, and it became a requirement that when a project would go to our change advisory board to get their formal blessing from management to go live, they had to show their Datadog vaccination card and prove that they had actually implemented the Datadog logging, the alerts, the monitoring, et cetera. And so the project team would have a Datadog champion, but we also made sure that whoever the business as usual team that they were going to turn the solution over, they had to partner with that champion and do it together for the handoff from the project to the business as usual. So this is what we announced to the CAB when this kind of went live. We put this out across IT and said, hey, we have a new requirement. We're announcing the vaccinations. And from that point forward, now when solutions go into production, this is a very important checkpoint that we use. Governance is also an issue. So we've really pushed hard on things like standard naming conventions, mandatory tagging, and we track this. When they go for their vaccination to get so the production support team has to sign off their vaccination that they did it properly. They check the governance, and if somebody didn't follow, if they named something incorrectly and didn't follow the standards, they get called out. They have to fix it before they go forward. So the results, 3 years in after doing all of this, what does it look like? So we're now up to the point where we've onboarded and trained about 100 champions. Now keep in mind, this is over a 3-year period, so we've had people join the bank, leave the bank, and not all of these champions have actually made it through and gotten certified and completed the program. But we've had at least 100 join and start throughout the past 3 years. So 47 have actually passed the ADB certification test and kind of made it to the end, so to speak. We've awarded over $1,000 worth of gift cards. And then there from servers, monitors, dashboards, synthetics, you can kind of see the scale that we're dealing with at the bank. I think I had a slide earlier that said we're about 6,000 users. Okay, and then you can see the photos of the trophies that we made, the t-shirts, the gift cards, et cetera, all the swag that we gave out as part of the program. So what was the impact to ADB? Now, we're in a much better place, I can tell you. When something goes down, we don't do these massive emails like we used to. We have a lot of cross-team collaboration. We have teams who used to really live in their silo, and now everybody is going to the same tool, looking at things. And what I love, what really warms my heart, is when I hear or see, for example, somebody from one team start digging into the Datadog metrics of something that traditionally would have been the other team. So for example, a Windows server engineer, there's a problem, and they start digging into network metrics or database metrics, and they don't see any barriers or lines in the sand that says that's not my silo or not my team. They actually go and use all the features of Datadog. So very importantly, we're getting to be much more ahead of the users. It's not the users anymore that let us know when something's wrong. A Datadog synthetic test or something lets us know and notifies the champion, and then the champion and the team together takes care of it. So that means less firefighting, better reliability. The reputation of the IT department is elevated because we don't have as many users out there being affected. More efficiency, less stress. The less stress is really good too, because the people are no longer spending their weekends firefighting because the reliability has gone up. So, and most importantly, maximizing our return on investment. We've spent a lot of time, effort, and money, as you can imagine, rolling out this tool. I can't think of anything more tragic than buying it, paying for it, putting it out there, and then nobody's using it. There's the human tendency is, oh, thanks for installing that. Those dashboards are cute. I'm going back to my day job. That would be horrible. So we're really maximizing the value. So some quick challenges and lessons learned here. So one is a lot of people were nominated, but they weren't necessarily personally vested into the program. And it's kind of a case of voluntold. The manager said, oh, okay, Johnny will be the Datadog champion, but Johnny really had no time for that. So what we really had to do is kind of work with those champions who you could tell were ready to go, and that's where we invest our time and effort. And then those other champions who had been nominated, but you could tell it wasn't the right time, we had to be patient and persistent. So over the 3-year period, there were some people who were nominated on year 1, and they didn't really get involved in the program until year 3. And that's okay, because the production support team who was coaching and facilitating everything, they wouldn't have had time to work with everybody at once. So it was kind of a be persistent, but also let people move at their own pace. Just don't let them fall off the map. And there were times when we would have to continually go to the manager and say, hey, you nominated John. It's been 6 months. He doesn't appear to have any time. Would you like to change your nomination? So continue to follow up and be persistent there. And the other challenge was also, and this is less of a challenge and more of a benefit, of getting people off their old tools. We were a Nagios shop. Pretty much everything was in Nagios. And there was only one team who ran and managed Nagios, and a lot of teams kind of just deferred to them. Let that team who runs Nagios, let them monitor everything for us. And so it was a huge win. It was a very joyous day when we were finally able to decommission Nagios, because that was a huge sign that this federation model of the teams taking on monitoring for themselves was starting to be successful, that we could live without Nagios. Okay, the quick story, there's always that one team. So there was, if you think back to the beginning, I mentioned we did a roadshow with every team. We went in and kind of did a sales pitch. There was one team who really resisted, and their attitude was kind of like, hey, well, for one, they weren't in infrastructure. So the team that I was on, we were part of the infrastructure division. Traditionally, infrastructure had done all the monitoring. So they weren't in infrastructure, and we were there presenting them, and their perspective was kind of like, hey, that's not really our job, that should be infrastructure's job. You're showing me a tool that tells us if the server's working, is the network working, and they really did not want to get involved. And so they were, I think, maybe the last team to finally get into the Champions program, and that was another case of us going to the manager every 6 months. But finally, this particular team, once they got in and started using it, their champions became some of our most advanced champions, and they would come to the community of practice and do these demonstrations of these amazing solutions for monitoring that they had built in Datadog and kind of knock everybody else's socks off. And I remember sitting there watching that with a giant grin on my face, like, man, just 2 years ago, they were the ones saying, that's not my job, why are you even talking to us? And now look at them, they're leading the way on the innovation for the enterprise monitoring in the organization, so that was wonderful. So some of the keys to success, so making it part of their performance. So on one hand, it's kind of a grassroots, but also there's a bit of a top-down in that I had to go to their directors and their managers and say, hey, coming up for next year in the performance plan or the kind of goals for your workforce, for each of your Datadog champions, can you put it on their goals for the year, or their performance plan that they need to kind of finish their Datadog certification? So that helped. Spotlighting the successes, showing off, giving people lots of credit. Like if we have an IT department town hall, let's have the champions come up, receive their certificate, get a round of applause, and celebrate the successes of the individual and also the success stories of their team. Make other teams jealous of what you've done, because if you think about a situation like that, we're celebrating all these success stories and these individuals who've been certified, then the other managers and directors in the room would be like, hey, hang on, in my department, nobody got certified yet, nobody's finished this program, and that would kind of light the fire for them to go get things moving in their division. And then, yeah, getting managers involved early. Okay, so what's next? Like any organization, there's always turnover, so it's kind of like, we don't think of this Champions program as something that we deployed and it's done. It's actually a process that never stops. Every week we have new people, new projects who are getting involved, joining the Champions program. We also have people rolling off of projects, leaving IT or leaving the bank, and so it's what we call evergreen. Essentially, it's a program that will never go away, and we have to continue to foster it and take care of it. So I think I have a mention somewhere. I thought I'd put it somewhere. I don't see it on the slide. So let me also mention, a critical success factor was we had one person on the production support team who was dedicated full-time, and they still are. They are dedicated full-time to the Datadog and the Datadog Champions program. So this production support team, they own the Datadog platform, but they are kind of the overseers. It's not their job to do the monitoring. But even that team, they all have day jobs. But there's one person on the team. We opened a position, we hired somebody and said, okay, full-time, day in, day out, help the champions, run the champions program, keep everybody motivated, keep things going, facilitate the community of practice, get the presenters set up. And his name's Mike, and Mike does a phenomenal job of keeping that going. We would not have the success and the momentum, the continued momentum, if it weren't for Mike. So that's a very big key to success. Other takeaways, get creative and think outside the box. You know, everything I'd kind of just shared with you, from the t-shirts to the gift cards to the gamification, that's obviously a bit outside the box, a bit different. The Asian Development Bank been around for more than 50 years, and very traditional, dare I say, old school. And to do something like this was a bit radical. So the message here is don't be afraid to be radical and shake things up and do things differently. You might get some people kind of looking at you like this, but once you have the success stories in place, it can be vindicating. Make it fun. People like to have fun. We're all humans. We like to come to work and do interesting things and have fun with one another. Where we're at in the Philippines, the culture is phenomenal in terms of kind of happy-go-lucky, let's eat lunch together, let's party together, let's hang out together, let's be friends, and let's have fun. If you can make it a game, they're going to make it a game over there. So that really helped us out. Otherwise, I'm looking at the slide here, management. So I think we've covered pretty much everything else. So the closing point here is we have to do this. Like, we have to modernize. We can't live our lives balancing our checkbook at the kitchen table when other people are using ChatGPT to automate everything else in the world. So we know we have to move on. We know we have to transform. We know we have to get from the caterpillar to the butterfly. And if we don't do it, if we get caught in analysis paralysis, or we're just too shy or too scared or whatnot, our boat's going to sink and we'll be in big trouble. So it's critical to the long-term survival of the company. So to do that, people need to be on board. You don't want to force them. You can't do it for them. So actually, that change management process of getting them to get involved, get some skin in the game, get some passion, and do it together, that's the key. So hopefully I've shared with you today. My goal today would be inspiring you all. If you're sitting in a situation where your organization is thinking about rolling out an observability tool, whether it's Datadog or any other tool, and you're sitting there wondering, how am I going to get people to use this thing? Hopefully I've shared some things with you today that can be inspiring, thought-provoking. And then I'm happy to field questions here after we're the last session today, so I can stick around, or if you want to contact me on LinkedIn, that's fine too. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Matt. We will take some questions. I see that some are coming in through the Slido. Please, you can scan the QR code, send some more in. Okay, I'll give them a second because I just sprung it up on them. Okay, let me get one question here, and then I will throw the mic to y'all. I see your hands back there. So the question is, if you joined an organization which has deployed an open source observability solution, how might you pitch a transition towards a SaaS offering like Datadog?
Okay, so if I heard the question, if you joined an organization and they've just adopted an open source tool, which is quote unquote free, how would you kind of pitch to them using something like Datadog? So I don't work for Datadog. I'm not a Datadog salesman, so I'm not going to sit up here and say that, oh, Datadog's the best or the only or the #1 tool. But what I will say is I'm always a fan of bake-offs. In my organization, we do a lot of bake-offs of technology. When we selected Datadog, we did the bake-off of 5 or 6 tools. And what we did is we installed each and every one of them, and we actually used it in our environment and got feedback from people about how they liked it. And then we scored it, like, do you like the UI? Do you like the usability? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? So I would recommend that approach or that model to anyone looking to transition from one thing to another. And there's a good chance Datadog will come out fairly well ranked on the bake-off.
You mentioned about the gamification, right? Was it done in the Datadog tool, or is there a feature that's available? Because we just started the adoption. So I think it's a very cool idea to kind of have teams on board.
Yeah, good question. On my slides, you saw a lot of pictures of like dashboards and stuff. That was all Excel. So it was, and going back to the guy, Master Mike, and the team, it was important to have a small team who's responsible for Datadog, the platform, not actually doing the monitoring. And then having Michael be responsible for working with all the champions, making sure the Excel dashboards are updated and whatnot. So it was, that part was old school and manual. The things that we wanted to do, I don't think you could have done in Datadog from kind of the gamification perspective.
Got it. And you have some kind of like, I mean, what was the scoring based on? Is it like number of dashboards, number of team members onboarded from a specific team? What was the logic behind that gamification or scoring?
Yeah, I'm trying to go back on the slides. The thing's not working. Go forward. Oh, go forward? Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, good, thank you. Okay, let me show you one really quick, just to refresh my own memory. Okay, here. So I think this is kind of what you're asking. On the right-hand side of the slide, I don't know if you can squint or see, but in the green font, that was the number of points or it was Philippine pesos. So like 1,000 points would be 1,000 Philippine pesos. And you would get an award when you became a certified practitioner. So it was essentially, you had to deploy all the Datadog features for your team, the solutions or apps that you support, and then you take the test, and then that's your first time you get a gift card. And it was, if you're one of the first 10, you got 1,000 pesos. And then after we had already had 30 champions, it came down to 400 pesos. So it's kind of that one time to become the practitioner. And then for the special achievements that you could unlock, some were 200 pesos, some were 400 pesos, some were 1,000 pesos. And that was based on the difficulty and complexity of doing that achievement unlocked. And then we even had something at the bottom there called Advanced Practitioner, that if they unlocked 4 achievements, they would get another gift certificate award of Advanced Practitioner. But essentially it was based on complexity, how difficult it is to unlock the achievements.
Cool. I have a couple more questions online. What type of standards for metrics and traces did you enforce?
What kind of metrics?
The standards for your metrics and your traces did you enforce in your program?
If they're asking about the governance, so on the governance, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, we had naming conventions, we had mandatory tagging, and I'm drawing a blank. Oh, a lot of it was, I think, tagging, naming conventions, and there was some on like cost management on things like synthetics. So we have I don't have a screenshot, but in Datadog we actually built a governance dashboard that would show things like the cost of your synthetics, any tags that you had not properly. So for example, I know I'm fumbling, but we had a list of standardized teams, the team names. And so if you would tag something with a team name that wasn't on the standard list, it would show up in the automated. We had a Python script to kind of check all of that for you, and it would show up. But for something more detailed, feel free to contact me.
Okay. We'll have you use the mic.
Thanks for the presentation. This is awesome. My question to you is, you've highlighted the things that worked really well, which is great. I'm kind of curious, did you show up at this company day one with this as a vision, or was there like cultural learnings that you had to do? Were there missteps that were informative as well?
Yeah, great question. So definitely did not have all this in mind day one. And so it was kind of, if you think about the story of the project where, okay, I get the project, I'm responsible for leading the team to find what is the correct tool, go through the procurement process of getting the tool installed. So kind of early on, when we're still in the bake-off phase of trying 5 or 6 different tools and installing them, we weren't anywhere near the part where we actually had to deploy it and get people using it. But so during that early phase, what kept me up at night, I'm laying in bed kind of stressed about work, is thinking like, okay, 6 months from now when we're actually installing something, how are we going to get people to use it? My team, there's 5 of us. We can't do the monitoring for everybody. We can't set up APM and log in for every team in IT. And so that kept me up at night. And so this vision slowly came to life through many weeks of just stressing out. And I would get ideas, oh, we should try this, and then we could get the gift cards, and then, oh, we could get T-shirts, and then trophies, and then it just kind of slowly came to life like that.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It's been really awesome. A quick question. With your champions, you said it was a variety of teams, and you showed them up there. Just a two-part question. Number one, was there any surprising teams that were included that may have fallen outside of the technology vertical? And what was the more complicated team that you really wanted to adopt the championship program that you kind of had to more push along?
I'd say that we definitely did not try to like roll out Datadog to the business. For the most part, we kept it within the IT department, so the scope would be IT. There are areas of IT where we partner very, very closely. We essentially hold hands with our business partners, and even some of these business people in the business actually have some pretty decent IT skills. In some of those instances, we gave them access to Datadog dashboards or put their names on Datadog alerts because it made a lot of sense, but not really enrolling them in the Champions program or anything like that. Sometimes we have projects where the business is kind of in the driver's seat of the project, and they really get a good insight into how we do Datadog from that perspective. And then the team, I don't want to name and shame on a recorded live stream video, but in general, the tradition was at the bank that the Linux server team ran and managed Nagios for all of IT. And so the further away you are in the org chart from that Linux server team, the more they kind of felt like, this is not my job, I shouldn't be doing this. So it's definitely on the application side and then further away.
Okay, I have 3 questions I want to get through in these couple minutes online, and then folks in the room can swarm Matt afterwards and kind of get him down and get him to answer your questions. Okay, one is, do you have any tips on running a community of practice?
Any tips on running a community of practice?
Yes.
Yes. So the biggest thing about community of practice like this, especially these monthly community of practices where it's like, okay, once a month we're going to get together and have an agenda and talk to each other. The number one, the most common pitfall is that they kind of just, they die. They just wither away. They lose momentum, they lose steam, and they stop happening. Or people show up and they leave in 15 minutes because nothing's going on. So I'll say it again, we have Mike full-time managing this. So Mike is making sure that there's a quality agenda. Throughout the month, Mike is going out to the teams talking to them, hey, does anyone have anything cool? And these teams are often asking Mike and his teammates for help on Datadog. So he's getting constant exposure to what everybody's doing with Datadog, and he's pointing out like, oh, that's really good. You should demo that in the community of practice. I'm doing the same thing. So watching for those agenda items, making sure you have a good agenda, and it doesn't have to be like super structured and okay, we're going to talk about governance, we're going to make decisions. The more informal, the better. The number one most important piece of that is having the champions themselves get on the microphone, get on the screen share, and dive into Datadog and show you what they've done. So if you do that, I think you can keep the momentum going, and that's important.
I think we'll stop here because we're at time. Let's give Matt another hand.
Thank you.